When we bought our new house, we were given a gift from our realtor, Kim Schultz, some of you know her. It was a kit for a bat house. You see, I have a real problem with mosquitoes. If there's a porch full of people at night, I'll get more bites than everyone around me combined. Who else is there? Okay, all of you, those of you with your hands up are welcome to come anytime. And each one of those bites within a day will swell up to the size of quarters, literally. Of course, the people who never get bit, who are those? Please raise your hands. Okay, yeah, I see you now. Will always ask me, why am I freaking out? Or doing that funny dance every 5 seconds? Or why exactly do I have to wear that much citronella? It's a cute wooden rectangular box that hangs above our shed in our backyard. The dark paint warms it up in the day, which bats apparently need. That was a surprise for me. And it's high enough so that they'll find it and like it. With bats able to eat 500 insects per hour each, we're very eager for the new residents. But that's not likely to happen, as it turns out. We've since learned that it takes on average 6 to 7 years for a new family of bats to find one of these bat houses. We're still holding out hope that we'll beat the averages and the family will move in sooner. So in the meantime, full or not, we'll care for our empty shed-based home for the future. This is in part why I so strongly support denominational involvement. Our seats may be full here, but there are future religious homes that offer a saving, progressive message that need to be planted, cared for, and supported. And we can't do it all by ourselves. And there's always the reality that some of our efforts will lie quiet for a time. And someone needs to be able to steward them in the fallow times. Someone was there for us when we grew our religious home here in Huntington. And we must be ready to return the favor down the road. We've talked about community all month as our theme. I preached on how we discern our call in terms of the people around us, how we make amends and we rebuild right relationships when we have fallen astray. And this morning, we'll move from the local and the social to the bigger picture, the role of community across time and generations. The Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, a UU minister and academic, once noted that the religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed, he says. Whatever we do on our own is inherently limited. Time will bring our individual actions to an end. Even the lasting effect we have on one another can diminish if it goes no further. That's where tradition, in its largest sense, carries us forward. As a community of communities, our ways, patterns, and practices can continue on. But as Morrison Reed says, it's not just about us. In fact, the broadest traditions are almost the opposite of us. For alone, our vision is too narrow. And we join a religion to enable a wider view and a longer memory, that we might contribute to the tapestry of life through the high points and the low points, so that when we are too weak, we may share our strength with enough people that we become strong. And we are strong again for it. That is what denominationalism is really about. For some of us, we're converts from another tradition. Others may be lifelong UUs who have never dipped their foot in the larger denominational work. Some may still be carrying scars from a tradition where the word denomination was 4 letters, and it meant to them calcified hierarchy. Others may be at a place where they come here for this community and don't identify with our wider faith. I suggest now that one of the challenges of membership is to appreciate the purpose and positive impact our tradition holds for all of us. This house of hope would not be here without it. Some will chide that Unitarian Universalism is anything but an organized religion. It's a joke I've never really thought held much water. I'm a product of our own organization. My training, my mentors, the financial support I've received, the professional groups that I rely on in times of particular challenge, the assistance this congregation received in its back-to-back clergy and educator searches, the connections in times of sabbaticals, all the dynamic programming our youth enjoy at the regional level through cons we just heard about this morning, retreats, workshops, and the list goes on. The curriculum we use, the national justice campaigns we learn and serve. We will often joke we're not organized because it lets us off the hook, right? If we're not organized, then there's nothing demanded of us. It's not really our fault. And too often, we don't really want anything demanded of us. Not anything more, at least. Whatever our preferences, remember, religion does make demands of us. In fact, it's good for our spirits that it does. On our own, we can fall into complacency, self-aggrandizement, and even prejudice. On our own, we are not held accountable. One of the most important lessons I learned in seminary is that we are always accountable for our actions, our faith, our behavior. Community calls us back into accountability, even on the days we prefer it not. And that's good for our souls. We're not meant to live as isolated creatures. It's not good for us to always be let off the hook, even if from time to time, letting something drop is a healthy thing. The world is not a series of low-bar reality TV shows with no relevance. On our own, we can start to think that way, and we need to be guided back on the path from time to time. What we can accomplish is also so much more as a tradition. A few years back, I attended one of the ministers' gatherings at our denomination's General Assembly. In this particular worship service, there were two sermons delivered. One was from a minister in their 25th year of the ministry, and the second was a minister in their 50th year. The 50th year minister happened to be the Reverend Clark Olson. In a small world, he was a predecessor to Paul Ratzlaff, your minister here, back in Morristown, which is where my home congregation was, where I came to UU. Reverend Olson was also the minister of the Berkeley Fellowship of Unitarians at the time of the Selma Civil Rights March in 1965, when he survived an attack that fatally injured another white minister, the Reverend James Reed. This happening not a month after the shooting of Jimmy Lee Jackson, a black civil rights activist, the reason for the march. I found his talk incredibly moving and remarkably humble. I always imagine the folks who marched in Selma in this otherworldly light for being the folks that stood up for their convictions, the people who had no other place left to go, so they went and stood up for themselves, who stood up for the basic humanity in each of us. And certainly they were the ones that were far ahead of the common view of the times, with some giving their lives. I marveled, though, at how every day the decision was for this particular minister. He spoke about how he almost didn't even go. He wanted to, but the money wasn't there to make the travel across the country. Then one of his congregants donated the money for Clark Olson to travel and stand for their congregation. It gave him the opportunity to stand witness and to be there for the last moments of his colleagues' and friends' life. But I don't even know the name of the congregant that made that possible. I don't even know their name. Hearing this part of the story, the part that's not shared in the history books, helped me to see the broader and deeper connections that all our actions make in the work of justice in our world. It transformed it from a history lesson about a certain hero and martyrs to one about the everyday work of building community. It certainly takes both kinds of justice work, but it reminded me that we each have a part to play. It made the impossible seem a little more probable to my mind and my heart. It's not about a handful of people, a handful of heroes. Justice is the turning toward committed action with a concerted effort. It's a spirit of what we often call right relations, apply to neighborhoods and to schools and to court systems. And it takes all of us in small ways and in large ways to bring that about. It's not reserved for those handful of heroes, but relying upon our everyday strivings together. Alone, our everyday strivings sometimes plant seeds, for sure, and that is a great thing. But together we can more productively garden our plantings into something that's meaningful, sustainable, and makes a much more lasting impact. I'd like to end our sermon by returning to the message of our Buddhist parable this morning of the monk who sat in the tree. This is my question. Tell me, monk, what is it that all the wise ones have taught? Can you tell me the most important thing the Buddha taught? Finally, this is your answer, Governor. Don't do bad things. Always do good things. That's what all the Buddhas taught. Right. Hopefully, we all learn this by the time we're 3 years old. And we all spend the rest of our lives learning to forget that, right? It would be convenient. It would be easy to say that religion and denomination aren't really important. All we have to do is remember what we learned when we were 3 years old. Yep, that's all we have to do. And the world shows us countless examples of people forgetting the basics. Religion can be the source of the problem or the source of the solution. I challenge us to join as a faith, to join this faith as part of that solution. Not joining it solely because we want to find like-minded people who confirm and reinforce our values. Not joining it solely to have another way to make friends when we're lonely. Not joining it solely because we're trying to find our way in the world. I challenge us to join this faith or rejoin this faith, to be held accountable. We are never always going to be right. We are never always going to be able to face the challenges of the world on our own. We will not always remember what is right and good in every situation. Legacy of justice-making requires the baton to be passed from one hand to another across the ages. We can't hold on to that baton and still expect to win the race. And we can't pass it along by ourselves. And remembering what we learned at age 3 is clearly one of the toughest challenges life has to offer. So let's tackle and re-tackle that lesson together. May we hold one another in our arms, accountable, with hope in our hearts and love on our lips. Amen, and blessed be.